The Danish Parliament has approved controversial measures to confiscate assets from refugees seeking to enter the country in order to pay for their upkeep. The measure, which will enable the government to seize any assets or cash in excess of 10,000 kroner, around $1,500, was approved earlier today, and brings it into line with other European countries, most notably Switzerland, and in fact, also interestingly, aspects of southern Germany, in Bavaria in particular, where refugees have found that they've had their assets and certain valuables confiscated from them in order to pay for certain, as I said, matters of upkeep, be it either food and lodgings or part of their educational program and other administrative matters. This has not been without heavy criticism, both within Denmark itself and obviously from the European Union and the wider international community. It's clear that within Europe, the connotations of images of Jews having their valuables stolen and the parallels there, people are quick to jump on that. Margaret, you're shaking your head a little bit. What do you think?
You know me very well, my colleague. I don't like the fact that we're akinning the very hospitable, very humane Danes with a massive welfare structure in place to the Nazis. It really gets under my skin. You know, they've offered food and lodging to asylum seekers upwards of 20,000, right. And yet we're criticizing them for keeping a policy in line with their current Danish welfare model. They do this with their own unemployed.
Right, well, you're right there. That's the defense to this, is the fact that under the Danish law, if you want to claim unemployment benefit, you have to satisfy certain criteria, and one of the criteria you have to satisfy is that you also have to sell any assets that you own in excess of 10,000 kroner, as I said, $1,500. The counter to that argument is, well, certain people have unemployment insurance, and you're not, therefore, as a consequence, it's not a level playing field. You're not comparing like with like. The other thing to bear in mind is that these are not people, these are not economic migrants. These are not people, these are people fleeing a conflict zone. As Amnesty International spokesperson said in relation to the situation in Germany, where, as I said, in certain parts of Bavaria, people are finding that they're having assets confiscated. This is what they said. They said refugees have lost their homes, their jobs, and almost everything they possess. It is hard to believe that anybody will want to seize from them the few assets that they have managed to salvage. This is based on the wrong assumption that refugees are coming to Europe because of economic benefits. Refugees are fleeing for their lives and will not be dissuaded by these measures. I don't know that they won't be dissuaded by these measures, because I think this is specifically designed in Denmark to dissuade people from coming. Not that they are looking for handouts, not that they're looking for it, but the fact that they are going this arduous journey, and then the realization that really it's the message that it's sending. It's not so much the confiscation. Because again, the analogy with the unemployment doesn't really work, because no one's actually going to the unemployed's house and rifling through their possessions and patting them down. But that's actually what's happening in these instances. Right. They're going to be physically searched to make sure that they're not hiding any assets. There is one slight caveat in that any items that they're deemed sentimental, so wedding rings, things like that, they're not going to confiscate those. Right. But it is distasteful.
Watches and iPhones, though, according
Watches
to Al Jazeera,
and iPhones have been confiscated. They're up for grabs. I mean, it is distasteful. I have to say.
You could see how someone could abuse this.
Certainly, and I said the image that it portrays of Denmark is not a good one. Washington Post said, a particularly bitter connotation in Europe, where the Nazis confiscated large amounts of gold and other valuables from Jews and others. It's a very stark image. You've got tens of thousands of people. As you said, they took on 20,000. There's a reported estimates are that it's going to be a similar number this year coming. I mean, immigration is the number one matter, the number one issue on voting Danes' minds, though, at the moment. It is their number one concern. And so this legislation is obviously in direct response to that and to trying to seek to allay those fears and those concerns.
Look, I took an issue with calling them inhumane, because not to crap on your story, but how many refugees did Saudi Arabia take, or Bahrain, or the UAE, for that matter, any major Middle Eastern country that's wealthy?
Sure.
And the fact that the Danish population, they've aided upwards of 20,000 people, giving them food, diapers, water, housing, assimilating them the best that they can, and the fact that they're finding that their coffers aren't as full and they might not be able to pay for helping other people, confiscating the iPhone seems very low on the totem pole for me.
Well, certainly there is an economic cost to all of this, and Germany is certainly feeling that and overwhelmed, administratively overwhelmed. I can't say that I agree with your view on that. I do find these people are fleeing a conflict zone, and there is something in the recent history of Europe where it just finds that image of extremely jarring. The other aspect to this legislation, which I should also mention, is the fact that there is a delay on family reunions. So the idea is that previously, after a year, you could call on family members, and it would be easier to get family members to come and join you in the country where you resided, where you'd found yourself. Now they're extending that to 3 years.
Okay.
So the idea is that you either come as one, you come as a whole family unit, or you don't come at all, because it's deliberately intended to dissuade people from coming and then waiting for a period of time. So you have to come as a whole family unit. And again, of course, we've seen all those, the tragedy that's ensued, how dangerous this travel is, and traveling just as traveling with your family and young children in particular only heightens the danger there. Mm-hmm. So Denmark putting a clear mark in the sand saying that they do not want any more refugees. They're overwhelmed by the situation, and marking that with this new highly controversial piece of legislation.